Before there were kings, there was a stone, born not of woman but of mountain and sky, forged in silence for 500 years, waiting for the world to notice what it had made. They gave him no name, no throne, no place among the immortals. So he did what gods fear most from the ones they forget. He remembered himself. Sun Wukong. Heaven has rules, and I was never good at following them. Long before the world had names for such things, there was a mountain that touched the sky without asking permission. The mountain of flowers and fruit rose from the eastern sea like a spine breaking the surface of the world, its peaks wrapped in mist that never fully cleared, its cliffs older than memory itself. Somewhere near its summit, hidden among jagged stone and wind-bent pine, there stood a single boulder, not carved, not placed, but grown the way a tooth grows in a jaw. It had no name. It needed none. For it was not born of soil or sediment, but of something far older, the marrow of the earth itself, fused with the breath of heaven. For 36,000 years that stone did nothing but wait. Drinking in the first light of every dawn, absorbing the silver of every moon, it drew the essence of the world into itself the way a lung draws air, slow, patient, endless. Rain seeped into its cracks and never escaped. Lightning kissed its surface and left no scar. Season by season, dynasty by forgotten dynasty, the stone swelled with a power it had no name for, gathering the very breath of heaven and earth into a womb of solid rock, until one day, quietly without ceremony, it became ready. And on that day the mountain screamed. The boulder split down its center with a crack that rolled across 300 li, shaking birds from their roosts and startling tigers from their dens. Dust exploded upward in a column of gray, swallowing the sun for the length of a breath. Then from the smoking wound in the stone, something rose. It was an egg, smooth, pale, impossibly round, rolling free from the shattered rock and coming to rest upon the mountainside, trembling as though breathing. And within its shell, something stirred. The egg cracked open not with a whimper but with violence, bursting apart in a shower of golden light so fierce that it split the morning sky. Twin beams shot upward from where the shell had been, piercing through cloud and atmosphere, striking the very gates of heaven itself. In the Jade Emperor's court, ministers froze mid-word. Immortals dropped their cups of nectar. The Emperor himself rose from his throne, sensing, for the first time in 10,000 years, that something had entered the world without his permission. The light dimmed. The dust settled. And where the egg had been, there crouched a small, dark shape, a monkey no larger than a child's fist, drawing his first breath on the cold stone. His fur was the color of aged bronze, his eyes burning gold, holding within them something that no ordinary creature possessed, the memory of stars. He did not cry. He did not tremble. He simply opened his eyes to the mountain, and the mountain, in turn, seemed to bow. The other monkeys of the mountain welcomed him as one of their own, and for a time he lived as they lived, swinging through ancient trees, drinking from cold mountain streams, sleeping beneath a canopy of stars and nests woven from bamboo leaves. He learned to laugh in their tongue, to steal fruit in their fashion, to run wild and free beneath the endless sky. And yet, beneath the laughter, something in him remained separate, a silence that the others could sense but never touch. For when the other monkeys bled, they bled only blood. When he was struck, something older stirred beneath his skin, something that did not belong to flesh, but to stone and starlight and the breath of heaven itself. He was faster than them, stronger than them, and though he ran among them as a brother, some quiet corner of his mind understood even then that he had not been born. He had been forged. And forged things in the end are always alone. It was during the burning heat of summer that the monkeys, seeking shelter from the sun, discovered a waterfall unlike any other, a churning curtain of white water crashing down from the cliffs above with a roar that swallowed all other sound, striking the rocks below with the fury of 1,000 drums. The monkeys gathered at its edge, chattering nervously, staring into the deafening spray, daring one another to discover where the water came from and where, if anywhere, it led. "Whoever dares pass through that curtain of water," an elder monkey called out over the roar, "and returns alive, he shall be our king." None moved. The mist alone stung their skin like needles of ice, and the sound alone was enough to send lesser hearts fleeing back into the trees. Then the stone-born monkey stepped forward. He felt no fear standing before that wall of crashing water, only a pull deep and magnetic, as though the falls themselves were calling to the same ancient force sleeping in his bones. Squaring his shoulders and closing his burning eyes, he ran forward and leapt without hesitation, hurling himself into the roaring wall of white. The water struck him like 1,000 fists, cold as the void between stars, deafening as the collapse of mountains. And then, in the space of a single heartbeat, it was gone. Silence swallowed him whole. He opened his eyes to find himself standing in a vast, hidden cavern, untouched by sun or rain for all of time. Crystal formations glittered along the ceiling like frozen stars, and a natural bridge of stone arched over a still, black pool that reflected no light at all. This was Shuilian Dong, the water curtain cave, a palace carved not by human hands, but by the patient hunger of the falls themselves, waiting in darkness for someone worthy enough to claim it. When he emerged once more through the crashing water, dry and unharmed and glowing faintly with an inner light none of the others could explain, the monkeys of the mountain fell utterly silent. Then as one they bowed. They named him that very hour, Mythology Wong, the handsome Monkey King. A throne of stone was raised within the hidden cave, and for the first time in his short existence, he sat above others, wearing a crown woven from vine and blossom, listening to a mountain full of subjects chanting his name into the dark. That night, as fires burned and his subjects danced and drank in wild celebration, the Monkey King slipped quietly away from the noise, climbing alone to the mountain's highest ledge. Below him, the celebration blazed on, full of light and laughter and drums. Above him, the moon hung cold and silver, indifferent to kings. He stared up at that pale, distant light for a long time, feeling something twist quietly in his chest. A hollow ache that no crown, no kingdom, no chorus of loyal subjects could ever fill. He was king of a mountain. King of monkeys who would live, grow old, and die within a single fleeting lifetime, while he, forged from stone, born of starlight, older in his blood than the very peak he ruled, would remain. And in that silence, beneath that cold and watching moon, the first true thought of his long and violent life took root within him, quiet but unshakable. A king of mountains is still bound to die like every other beast beneath the sky. But I was not born to die. I was born from heaven and earth itself. So why should heaven's gates remain closed to me? The years upon the mountain passed as years do among the immortal-blooded and the mortal-bound alike, swiftly for some, eternally for others, until one autumn evening, gathered around the fires of Shuilian Dong, the handsome Monkey King noticed an absence that struck him harder than any blow he had ever taken. An old monkey, one who had raised him in his infant years, teaching him to climb before he could properly walk, was gone. Not banished, not lost, simply gone. His body left cold and hollow beneath the very tree where he had slept for 1,000 nights, his eyes closed to a world that no longer required his presence in it. Wukong stood over that still, silent form for a long time, feeling something crack quietly beneath his ribs. He had punched through solid granite. He had wrestled tigers into submission with his bare hands. He had leapt through walls of crushing water without a flicker of fear. And yet here, kneeling before a friend who would never rise again, he understood, for the first time in his existence, that there walked an enemy through this world that no strength of arm could ever touch. Time itself was hunting him, patient and silent, and one day, no matter how many mountains he ruled or waterfalls he conquered, it would find him too. That single, suffocating thought unraveled every illusion of peace he had built for himself. Sitting motionless before his fire that night, surrounded by loyal subjects who could offer him nothing but songs and wine, the Monkey King wept, not from sorrow alone, but from a terror colder than any winter storm. He realized, with a clarity sharper than any blade, that a crown built upon a dying mountain was no crown at all. And so, before the sun had fully risen, he gathered driftwood and vine, lashing together a raft with hands trembling not from weakness, but from the sheer, burning urgency of a creature who had just glimpsed his own mortality and refused utterly to accept it. He set out from his mountain alone, pushing his fragile vessel into waters that had swallowed far greater beasts than him without so much as a ripple of protest. The ocean, he quickly discovered, held no loyalty to kings. 4 weeks that bled into months, he drifted beneath skies that offered no mercy, storms rising from the horizon like the wrath of forgotten gods, waves taller than temples crashing down upon his tiny raft, threatening to swallow him whole into the black and lightless depths below. Salt cracked his lips. Hunger gnawed at his belly like a second, hollower heartbeat. And in the silence between storms, a silence vast enough to swallow a soul, the isolation pressed down upon him heavier than any wave, reminding him with every passing hour that no subjects sang for him here, no mountain bowed to him here. Here, he was nothing but a small drifting shape upon an indifferent and endless sea, driven forward by nothing but sheer stubborn will alone. Yet he did not turn back. Whatever force had cracked that ancient stone to birth him into the world seemed even now to whisper faintly beneath the waves, urging him onward toward a shore he could not yet see, but somehow knew was waiting. And after what felt like a lifetime adrift, land finally rose from the mist, not the wild, untamed cliffs of his home, but the quiet slopes of a distant continent, veiled in an eerie stillness that felt almost sacred. Wandering for years through forests and market towns, mimicking the speech and dress of mortal men if only to move unnoticed among them, Wukong searched relentlessly for someone, anyone, who might hold the secret to escaping the fate that had claimed his old friend beneath the mountain trees. It was a woodcutter's passing remark, muttered without a second thought, that finally set him upon the true path, whispers of a hidden sanctuary deep within the mountain of heart and mind, where an ancient sage was said to have unlocked the very secrets of the universe itself. Climbing through fog-choked forests where no birds dared sing, Wukong eventually came upon a cave entrance so unassuming, so utterly devoid of grandeur, that he nearly walked past it entirely, until he saw, carved faintly above the threshold, a name that seemed to hum with power far older than the stones surrounding it, the cave of Master Subhuti. Kneeling before the ancient sage for the first time, feeling smaller and more insignificant than he had ever felt in his life, Wukong begged, not as a king but as a creature terrified of the dark waiting at the end of every life, to be taught the secrets of immortality. Subhuti said nothing of magic that day, nor the next, nor for years that followed. Instead, the wild-born monkey king who had once ruled an entire mountain found himself sweeping stone floors until his palms bled, hauling water up steep mountain paths until his legs trembled beneath him, and sitting in silence for hours that stretched into aching eternities, learning, for the very first time, the excruciating, humbling weight of patience. The other disciples mocked him quietly at first, this strange, restless creature with fire behind his eyes, and yet Wukong endured it all without complaint, sensing somewhere deep in his bones that whatever waited on the other side of this humbling silence would be worth every callous, every bowed head, every swallowed pride. And then, one moonless night, deep in the stillness where the rest of the disciples lay sleeping, Master Subhuti crept silently to Wukong's side and struck him 3 times upon the skull before walking away without a single word. Understanding the hidden message at once, Wukong slipped from his bed at the hour of 3, creeping through shadowed halls to Subhuti's private chamber, where the old sage sat waiting for him beneath flickering candlelight. What followed in the hours before dawn changed him forever. Whispering secrets meant for gods and immortals alone, Subhuti unveiled to him the 72 transformations, the sacred art of reshaping his very flesh into anything his mind could conjure, be it sparrow or serpent, boulder or blade of grass. And beyond even this, the old master taught him the cloud somersault, a technique allowing him to leap across 108,000 li in the space between one heartbeat and the next, faster than thought itself, faster than the wind that carried gossip between gods. For the first time since witnessing death claim his old friend beneath the mountain trees, Wukong felt something loosen within his chest. A terrible, glorious hope that perhaps he might yet outrun the darkness hunting him after all. But power, once tasted, is rarely worn quietly. Showing off before his fellow disciples one afternoon, transforming himself into a towering pine tree just to win their astonished applause, Wukong failed to notice Master Subhuti watching from the shadows, his ancient face darkened not by anger, but by something closer to sorrow. Summoning him that same evening, Subhuti spoke with a gravity that silenced even Wukong's restless spirit. Such gifts, displayed so carelessly, would only draw the jealous eyes of heaven itself down upon this quiet mountain sanctuary, and that was a danger the old sage could not allow to fall upon his other students. And so, with a heaviness that betrayed genuine regret, Subhuti banished his most gifted pupil from the mountain forever, forbidding him from ever again speaking his master's name. Wukong descended that mountain alone, carrying within him powers that few gods themselves could rival, and yet feeling for the first time since leaving his own mountain home, a hollow ache of solitude that no transformation could disguise. Returning across the same merciless ocean that had once nearly claimed him, he came home at last to Shuilian Dong, to subjects who wept with joy at his return, to a kingdom that had waited faithfully for his arrival. Yet standing once more upon his throne of stone, wielding magic vast enough to reshape the heavens themselves, Wukong felt an unfamiliar restlessness stirring beneath his newfound strength. He was no longer merely a king of monkeys. He was something closer to a god now, and gods, he was quickly beginning to understand, required weapons worthy of the wars they were destined to wage. Power without purpose is merely a storm without a shore to break upon, and Wukong, feeling the full weight of his newfound godhood coiling restlessly beneath his skin, understood that a warrior wielding magic capable of reshaping heaven itself could not go on swinging a farmer's staff stolen from some forgotten shed. He required a weapon worthy of what he had become. And so, standing at the edge of his beloved mountain, staring out toward waters that stretched into an endless gray horizon, he turned his gaze toward the one place rumored to hold treasures fit for gods. The depths of the eastern sea, where the dragon king Ao Guang ruled from a palace no mortal eye had ever witnessed. Wading into the surf without a moment's hesitation, Wukong parted the waters before him with a single spoken command, carving a dry path downward through the crushing blue as though the ocean itself dared not touch him. Descending past drifting curtains of kelp and schools of silver fish that scattered in terror at his approach, he sank deeper into a world where sunlight became memory, where pressure thickened the very air into something heavy and suffocating, and where an ancient darkness pressed in from every direction like a held breath. Strange eyes watched him from the black, creatures older than kingdoms, retreating into caves and coral ruins the moment his shadow passed, sensing in him something far more dangerous than any predator these depths had ever produced. At last, crossing through towering gates of coral and pearl, he arrived before the crystal palace of the Dragon King, its walls glowing with a cold bioluminescent light that cast long, trembling shadows across the ocean floor. Ao Guang received him with the practiced courtesy of a ruler unwilling to provoke a stranger radiating such raw, untamed power, offering him first a halberd of gleaming bronze, then a trident capable of summoning storms, weapons that would have made any mortal king weep with gratitude. Wukong dismissed each in turn, swinging them once, twice, feeling them shatter uselessly in his grip or hang limp and hollow in his hands, utterly unworthy of the strength coursing through his veins. It was the Dragon Queen, growing desperate to see this restless guest finally leave her husband's halls in peace, who at last whispered of an ancient pillar resting at the very bottom of the sea, an iron column of such monstrous weight that even the strongest of dragons could not shift it a single inch, a relic said to have been placed there by Yu the Great himself to measure and anchor the depths of the ocean during the age of the world's first flood. Descending further still, past the palace foundations and into a black trench where the water grew heavy as molten lead, Wukong found it at last. A colossal shaft of black iron, humming faintly with a low, resonant frequency that seemed to vibrate not merely through water, but through the very fabric of the universe itself, as though this iron pillar were not merely holding back the sea, but anchoring something far vaster, some cosmic axis around which the stars themselves quietly turned. Placing both hands upon its ancient, star-forged surface, Wukong felt the pillar respond to his touch with something close to recognition, the ancient iron pulsing once, twice, as though a slumbering heart had suddenly remembered how to beat. "Shrink," he murmured, almost testing the word upon his tongue, and the pillar obeyed, the earth-shaking mass folding inward upon itself, glowing white-hot as it collapsed down to the size of a simple embroidery needle, small enough to be tucked behind his ear, yet humming still with the same terrible cosmic weight. The ocean itself seemed to shudder at the transfer of such power, currents rippling outward in confused, frightened waves, as though the sea had just watched its own foundation stolen away by a thief too powerful to refuse. Wukong returned to the surface that night not merely armed, but crowned in a new and terrible confidence, the Rui Jingu Bang resting behind his ear like a secret waiting to be unleashed. Celebrating deep into the night with his subjects, drinking until the stars themselves blurred into streaks of light above Shuiliandong, he finally collapsed into a heavy, wine-soaked sleep, utterly unaware that his soul was about to be stolen from him just as easily as he had stolen that pillar from the sea. In the deepest hour of the night, two grim and silent figures emerged from the shadows of his cave, their forms wrapped in the cold, dead air of the underworld itself, chains rattling softly in hands that had dragged 10,000 souls before his own. Binding his spirit in spectral iron before he could so much as stir, the Reapers of Diu dragged the Monkey King's soul down through the earth itself, past roots and stone and the slow dripping dark, into a realm where the sun had never once shone and where silence pressed against the ears like something solid. He awoke to find himself standing within the underworld's great hall, a vast and echoing chamber lit by pale, flickering torches that cast no true warmth, the air thick with the scent of ash and old regret. Before him loomed the 10 kings of hell, ancient judges seated upon thrones of bone-white stone, their eyes holding the tired and merciless weight of having away whatever fear the underworld's crushing silence might have otherwise inspired in him. Snapping his spectral chains as though they were little more than cobwebs, Wukong rose to his full height amid the stunned, disbelieving silence of hell's ancient rulers, his voice cracking like thunder through halls that had never once heard a voice raised in open defiance. "By what right?" he demanded, his golden eyes blazing brighter than the dim torchlight around him. "Does hell presume to claim what heaven and earth themselves once forged?" The 10 kings, faced with a fury and a power they had never before witnessed within their own domain, offered him no true answer, only trembling gestures toward the great book of life and death, the ancient ledger recording the appointed lifespan of every mortal creature to ever draw breath. Snatching the massive tome from startled hands, Wukong flipped violently through its endless pages until he found his own name, inked in fading characters beside a number that marked his allotted years upon the earth. With a single decisive stroke, he crossed it out entirely, the ink bleeding away into nothing beneath his claim. Then, scanning further, he found the names of every monkey upon his beloved mountain, striking each one from the book in turn, severing every last thread that death itself had woven around his kingdom. The underworld shuddered at the violation, its ancient laws groaning beneath a wound they had never once been designed to endure. Somewhere in the deepest architecture of the cosmos, a silence broke, the natural order of life and death, unchanged since the dawn of creation, suddenly fractured by a single act of raw, unrepentant defiance. Far above, within the golden halls of heaven itself, the Jade Emperor sat motionless upon his throne as a messenger arrived trembling before him, bearing news that made even the ancient stars themselves seem to pause in their slow, eternal turning. A rogue spirit, born of stone and starlight, had descended into the underworld and rewritten the very laws of mortality by his own hand. The emperor's expression did not change. But in the vast, silent halls of heaven, something ancient and patient had finally begun quietly to take notice. The Jade Emperor, faced with a creature capable of shattering the very laws governing life and death, chose not the path of war, but the quieter, more insidious path of appeasement, believing, in his ancient and calculated wisdom, that even the wildest storm might be tamed if offered a cage gilded brightly enough to resemble a throne. Summoned before the golden gates of heaven, Wukong ascended through parting clouds for the first time in his existence, staring in open wonder at halls of jade and starlight, at armies of celestial beings moving in perfect, silent order, at a world built entirely from law and hierarchy and the crushing weight of ancient tradition. Kneeling before the Jade Emperor's throne, he listened as a title was bestowed upon him with all the ceremony heaven could offer: Baimoan, keeper of the heavenly horses, a post never before granted to an outsider. For a time, he served with genuine, unguarded enthusiasm, tending to heaven's magnificent steeds with a diligence that surprised even himself, mistaking the ceremony surrounding his new title for genuine honor. It was an offhand remark from a stable hand, muttered without any true malice, that finally shattered the illusion entirely, a casual mention that Baimoan was the lowest rank in the entirety of heaven's celestial bureaucracy, a glorified stable boy dressed in borrowed dignity, granted a title with no real power, no true respect, nothing but the illusion of belonging among gods who saw him as nothing more than an amusing pet. The realization burned through him slower than any wound, and far more devastatingly. Standing motionless among the horses he had tended with such foolish pride, Wukong felt something ancient and volcanic uncoil within his chest, not merely anger, but a humiliation so total that it curdled instantly into pure, unrestrained fury. Overturning tables and smashing through gates that had stood unchallenged since the dawn of heaven itself, he tore his way out of the celestial stables, shattering the southern gate of heaven into a rain of golden splinters as he plummeted back toward the earth, leaving behind a trail of stunned, disbelieving guards who had never once imagined heaven's authority could be so casually, violently rejected. Returning to his mountain in a blaze of righteous fury, Wukong commanded his monkey subjects to raise an enormous banner above Shualian Dong, its fabric snapping violently in the wind like a challenge hurled directly at the sky itself. 7 great characters were emblazoned across its surface, visible for miles in every direction: the Great Sage, equal to heaven. It was not merely a title. It was blasphemy given form, an open declaration that he considered himself no longer subject to the divine order that had tried to cage him with a false crown, but an equal to the very gods who ruled the cosmos. Word of this ultimate insult reached the Jade Emperor within hours, spreading through heaven's golden halls like wildfire through dry timber. This time, there would be no false titles, no diplomatic gestures. This time, heaven would answer with the only language it now believed the Monkey King capable of understanding: total, overwhelming war. The sky above the mountain of flowers and fruit darkened first, not with storm clouds born of nature, but with the sheer, suffocating mass of 100,000 celestial warriors descending in perfect, terrifying formation, their golden armor blazing so brightly that the mountain below was cast into a strange, artificial twilight. Banners of heaven's 4 great celestial kings snapped above the divine host, spears and halberds glinting like a second, deadlier layer of stars, while beneath them, the earth itself seemed to hold its breath, sensing the arrival of a war it had never been built to withstand. Wukong emerged from his cave alone to face them, the Rui Jingu Bang already humming with anticipation in his grip, his golden eyes reflecting the terrible light of an entire army descending upon a single mountain. It was Neza, the fierce and youthful war god, who struck first, descending upon burning wheels of fire, his 6 arms wielding 6 different weapons in a blur of impossible motion, his voice ringing out across the battlefield in a challenge sharpened by divine arrogance. Wukong met him head-on without hesitation, iron staff crashing against celestial blade in a collision that sent shockwaves rippling across the mountainside, splitting boulders and toppling ancient trees like broken matchsticks. When Neza transformed himself into a towering 3-headed, 6-armed titan, wielding 6 weapons simultaneously in a dazzling storm of steel, Wukong answered in kind, his own body stretching and multiplying into a towering giant of equal size, meeting every strike with a ferocity that finally sent the young war god retreating in stunned, bloody defeat. Yet heaven's fury did not end with a single defeated god. It was Erlang Shen, the fierce 3-eyed warrior whose third eye could pierce through any illusion or disguise, who finally proved a genuine and worthy rival to the Monkey King's boundless power. Their duel exploded across the mountain in a display of shape-shifting warfare unlike anything the earth had ever witnessed, Wukong transforming into a sparrow, only for Erlang Shen to become a hawk diving upon him from above, shifting into a fish gliding through mountain streams, only to find a cormorant waiting patiently in the shallows. Twisting his form into a water snake, a crane, a temple itself complete with flagpole tail, each transformation met instantly and perfectly by his relentless celestial opponent, who seemed to anticipate every shift before it had even fully formed. Their battle tore through forests and split cliff faces in half, mountains crumbling beneath the sheer, cosmic force of their collision, the sky itself flickering between gold and black as divine light clashed against feral, untamed power. For every strike Wukong landed, Erlang Shen answered twofold. For every transformation he attempted, heaven's warrior countered with impossible precision. Slowly, inexorably, the tide of battle began to shift, not because Wukong's strength had faltered, but because heaven had finally understood that brute force alone would never be enough to end this war. It was Laozi, the ancient sage of pure and boundless wisdom, who finally provided the instrument of the Monkey King's downfall, not a weapon of war, but a diamond snare, an artifact forged in the fires of creation itself, capable of ensnaring even a god who had rewritten the laws of life and death. Hurled from above at the precise moment Wukong stood distracted, locked in combat against Erlang Shen's relentless assault, the snare struck him directly upon the skull, the impact staggering him for the first time in the entire war. In that single, fatal instant of hesitation, a celestial hound sent by Erlang Shen lunged forward, sinking its teeth into the back of the Monkey King's leg, dragging him down at last beneath the combined weight of heaven's entire divine host. Chains of celestial iron were wrapped around him within moments, binding wrists and ankles in bonds forged specifically to hold a god, while a hook was driven through his collarbone to ensure no transformation, no trick of magic, could ever free him again. Dragged before the Jade Emperor in chains, bleeding and bound, Wukong knelt upon heaven's golden floor for the second time in his existence, yet even now, surrounded by the full, crushing weight of divine judgment, his golden eyes remained utterly unbroken, burning still with a defiance that no chain, no diamond snare, no army of 100,000 warriors had truly managed to extinguish. He had lost the battle. But something ancient and unyielding within him understood, even in chains, that this war was far from over. Bound in chains forged specifically to hold a god, Wukong knelt before the full assembly of heaven while its ministers debated, with grave and anxious voices, how one might possibly execute a creature who had already crossed his own name from the book of life and death. Blades were brought forward first, their edges said to have never once failed to draw blood, yet striking his immortal flesh, they shattered into shimmering fragments, leaving not so much as a scratch upon his bronze-dark skin. Fire was summoned next, roaring hot enough to melt celestial armor, and still he sat within the flames untouched, almost bored, as though the inferno were nothing more than a warm afternoon breeze. Lightning, axes, the crushing weight of divine hammers, every instrument of death that heaven possessed was turned against him in turn, and every single one failed, shattering uselessly against a body forged from the marrow of the earth and the breath of heaven itself, tempered by 36,000 years of cosmic patience. It was Laozi, watching this futile parade of executions with quiet, calculating patience, who finally offered a solution born not of brute force, but of transformation. Let the creature be thrown into his 8 trigrams furnace, he suggested, a crucible said to burn hot enough to refine even the purest immortal essence into ash, its flames drawn not from ordinary fire, but from the primal energies of creation itself. Bound once more and dragged toward Laozi's sacred furnace, Wukong was sealed within its burning chamber, the great bronze doors closing behind him with a sound like the tolling of some vast and final bell. For 49 days, the furnace roared without pause, its flames licking against trigram-marked walls in colors no mortal eye had ever witnessed, violet fire bleeding into gold, gold bleeding into a searing white that seemed to burn through the very fabric of reality. Wukong endured within that inferno not as a victim awaiting death, but as a creature slowly, agonizingly transformed, the cosmic flame stripping away every last illusion of mortal weakness that still clung to his ancient bones. His fur singed away entirely in patches, his flesh blistering and healing and blistering again in an endless cycle of destruction and rebirth, until something extraordinary began to occur within the very core of his skull. The relentless fire, rather than extinguishing him, seeped instead into his eyes, forging within them a power that no immortal, no god, no ancient sage had ever possessed, eyes capable of piercing through any illusion, seeing truth in a world built entirely upon deception, burning now with a permanent, molten gold that would forever mark him as something reforged rather than destroyed. When the ministers finally pried open the furnace doors, expecting to find nothing but ash and cooling embers, they were met instead by an explosion of pure, unrestrained fury. Wukong burst forth from the flames with a roar that shook the golden halls of heaven to their very foundations, his new fiery golden eyes blazing with a wrath 49 days in the making, his iron staff already humming with the promise of total, merciless devastation. He tore through heaven's court with a violence beyond anything the celestial realm had witnessed in the entirety of its existence, scattering armies of 100,000 warriors like leaves before a hurricane, shattering pillars that had stood since the dawn of creation, forcing gods who had never once known true fear to flee before a creature who now seemed less like a rebellious spirit and more like an unstoppable force of nature itself, unleashed at last upon a world that had tried, and utterly failed, to contain him. The Jade Emperor, watching his entire celestial order collapse into chaos beneath a single furious monkey, understood at last that heaven's power alone would never be sufficient to end this war. And so, in his final and most desperate act, he sent forth a plea to the one being whose power existed beyond the reach of gods entirely, the Buddha himself, dwelling in a realm of stillness so profound that even heaven's chaos could not fully penetrate it. The Buddha arrived not with armies, nor with weapons, nor with any grand display of celestial fury. He arrived instead as a presence so vast, so utterly beyond comprehension, that the very concept of arrival seemed almost too small a word to describe it. He was not merely large, he was scale itself, a stillness so complete that the chaos of Wukong's rampage seemed to quiet in his presence the way a storm quiets before the deep, ancient pressure of the ocean floor. Where heaven's gods radiated power through light and fury, the Buddha radiated something far more unsettling, absolute, immovable calm, as though the entire universe rested gently within his awareness without requiring the slightest effort to hold it there. Standing before this impossibly vast and serene being, Wukong felt, for the first time since his fiery rebirth, something other than pure rage, an unfamiliar, prickling unease he could not quite name. Yet pride, forged through countless victories against gods and demons alike, refused to yield even here. When the Buddha calmly proposed a wager, that Wukong might claim all of heaven for himself if he could simply leap beyond the boundary of the Buddha's own palm, the Monkey King laughed, a wild, confident sound that echoed through halls still smoldering from his rampage. He considered himself already a being who could somersault 108,000 li in a single motion. Escaping something as small and insignificant as a palm seemed less a challenge than an insult. Leaping into the air with every ounce of his cosmic strength, Wukong shot forward through the sky at a speed beyond thought itself, the world blurring into streaks of color and light as he tore across distances that should have taken him far beyond the edge of the universe entirely. He flew for what felt like hours, the stars themselves growing thin and strange around him, until at last he arrived at what appeared to be the very boundary of existence, 5 massive, pillar-like formations rising into an endless, colorless void. Certain he had reached the true edge of creation, Wukong marked his triumph by scrawling his name upon the base of the center pillar, and then, in one final gesture of defiant pride, relieved himself against its base before somersaulting back the way he came, eager to claim his victory before the Buddha's serene, unbothered face. Landing triumphantly before the very being he had wagered against, Wukong announced his conquest with all the arrogance of a creature who had never once known true defeat. It was the Buddha's quiet, almost gentle response that shattered him utterly. "You never left my palm at all." Slowly, and with a dawning horror that eclipsed every fear he had ever known, Wukong looked down to find, etched faintly into flesh he had mistaken for cosmic pillars, his own name, still fresh, still damp with his own careless defiance. The 5 great pillars he had marked as the edge of the universe were nothing more than the Buddha's own 5 fingers, extended gently before him the entire time. He had not flown beyond creation. He had not escaped anything at all. He had simply run, with all his godlike speed and cosmic fury, across the surface of a single open palm, believing a finite hand to be the boundless edge of existence itself. In that single, devastating instant, the invincible great sage, equal to heaven, understood for the first time the true, crushing scale of his own insignificance. Before he could utter a single word of protest, the Buddha's hand closed gently around him, transforming in an instant into an enormous mountain of stone, descending from the heavens to pin the Monkey King beneath its impossible, eternal weight. The earth shuddered as the 5 elements mountain settled into place, sealing Wukong beneath layers of ancient rock, his arms and legs vanishing into cold stone that no fire, no transformation, no cosmic fury could ever hope to shatter. And there, beneath that silent, unmoving mountain, the once invincible king of the flowers and fruit mountain remained, his golden eyes still burning faintly beneath the rock, still watching the slow crawl of centuries pass overhead, waiting in cold and patient darkness for a single monk who would not arrive for another 500 years. The mountain did not move. The wind did not answer him. And somewhere far above, the world simply continued on without him, indifferent to the god trapped silently beneath its stone.